I grew up kind of poor and broke. It was like, I need to make money. Did I care about my clients? Absolutely. Did I want them to get results? Absolutely, I did. But I think on the forefront of my mind, it wasn't coming in and really getting my message out there, serving people, giving to people who would never or could never give back to me. I think it was more about, as soon as I receive, then I will give you, then I will be invested. So it was kind of a selfish mentality. And as a result, I got compensated for it. How much did I get compensated? $75,000 total in 4 years. When clients see where we're at right now, let me remind you where I first started. Let me remind you of the shit that I went through. And so, and I tell people, maybe people have found success in not giving as much. I've never, ever found myself receiving more than I was giving. I just haven't. And maybe that's true for other people because they're two completely different things. And realizing like, man, my dad hated looking at accounting. Geez, I hate looking at accounting. Where did my dad learn that at? Why did I take on that belief? What's the real belief? What's the real fear? And as we start looking deeper on these things, we're going to find some really incredible things. And guess what? It all leads to progression. Mm-hmm. It all leads to happiness.
That's right.
Or a top performer. It's like a I can't even say the word. It's a self-prophecy. Like they're going to make themselves true. Haven't you noticed that? Like people always fall, like we can't be wrong about ourselves, right? We always have to follow through. And so I began to really look deeper into this and start to study mindset, their mind. They really don't know their identity, and how this shows up in business is this shows up in the form of your brand. And so that's what birth means, branding. And then it just took off from there into an agency, because what I realized is that a lot of people went out and hired some really big idiots to build their business. And so I was like, geez, I'll just give them Frank. I'll just give them my team, and, and let's come in here and help kind of swoop underneath of them and be a part of their team. I was like, that's stupid. The kid will never remember it. Save the money, invest it into their college. And then here's what my ass is doing. I'm throwing my kid a 1-year birthday party. Right. And so, yeah, I think that it is very much exactly what you said. And it kind of comes back where you're saying the love or lack of love of others is really back to you as the person.
It's not hard to become a millionaire. It's not hard to make money. The hard part is identifying who you are and getting it structured properly to where somebody else feels so much connection, so much value out of what you're offering that they're willing to give you $1,000 of their hard-earned money, which for most people, let's say they're making $30 an hour. Okay. That's nine times 10. That's 90 hours worth of effort, minimum. That's a month and a half worth of effort. And they're going to pay you a month and a half of their efforts, or I guess a week and a half, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks of their efforts. They're going to pay you to help them receive peace and joy and light faster. It's a good trade. Now, the question is, can you market it that way? Can you tell a good enough branding story that they feel like it's a good trade?
And so I believe like the key to being happy is progressing. I believe fundamentally, if you want to be happy, you got to progress. Right. And I've really learned this through training people over the years. You see this multi-million-dollar CEO. They lost $200,000 in an investment. They're fucking miserable. They hate life. A dude just got $1 raise. Dude, they're going to Vegas. They're like, that progression. It wasn't about where they're at in that state of who had more money or who had more health or wealth or whatever the conversation is. It was the fact of they progressed and it felt good. Right. And so now I begin the conversation is, for me anyways, so now how do we progress? So if we're here to progress and be happy, now what's the formula to progress? And I believe, due to the nature of, if you want to receive something, then you got to give something. And I think early on in my entrepreneur journey, my business journeys, I didn't get this. So now the question is, well, what do I give? Because if I want to receive something, special in this world, then I better give something special. So what do I give? And for me, I believe that's me. What is me? Well, I'm unique. I'm different. I'm innovative. And yeah, I'm here. So that means I have something that the world needs. And I call that next gen. And so that's the foundation of our brand. and that deeper belief. And so now our goal in branding is to help find people's next gen. What makes Sam unique, different, and innovative? What's his stories? What's his experience? What's his belief system? And so to go down to that core belief system, usually when we go down that core belief system where Sam talks about symbolism and all these different things and how he interprets life, that goes into how he lives life. And so now he wants to share that love with other people, which is one of his deepest beliefs, is that we all have a legacy to give to the world. And a big part of that is money, which comes from his upbringing. And so that's essentially where we start. So what I have come to find out over the years is, man, we have way more influence than we could ever imagine. We have way more influence than we could ever imagine. And I think that scares most people. And I'm sure you've heard this, is when they start to become incredibly influential and they start to learn the power of it, they almost sometimes view it as manipulative because they feel like, I shouldn't have this much influence. Have you ever had that conversation with people
Oh,
before?
absolutely. And I think it just really comes back to down to what we were talking about before, is like conscious or awareness. It has nothing to do with what, like, you already have that much influence. All that's happening as you become more aware of how to actually control the influence and direct the influence. That's all that's happening. You're sitting there and you think positive talk is telling you that you can suffer long enough to get to the other side. That is not positive talk. That is prolonged suffering. Okay. Positive talk is when you find a gratitude for the suffering.
See, I've been talking to this about my wife. I call it perspective.
I
And
agree.
I think, yeah, perspective. And I think if we changed our perspective on things, I think we'd ultimately find ourselves much more happy on a day-to-day basis. Some natural strength is,
We both
he
can.
said, the secret to life is merely giving, because when you give, you're going to receive. When you receive, you're going to feel significant. When you feel significant, you're going to find yourself being in significant areas, connecting to people. When you're connecting to people, you're going to feel love. And when you're around people, your basic necessities of life are going to be taken care of. There's going to be certainty. In that same conversation, there's also going to be spontaneity. And literally every single human need that you seek for as a person is met by simply giving. And so that's something that I've talked a lot about over the years, is that process. And so whenever I get stuck in life, I find out, what do I need to give? And sometimes it requires giving the things that you don't want to give. And for a lot of things, what people don't want to give, they don't want to give money. And so they hold on to it, they latch to it. And that's what's going to cause a lot of people to go out of business in these next couple of years, is that holding on to things and stopping the flow of currency for it flowing in their life, because that's not how rich people work.
And my wife and I both know when that is. We were very clear about it. We had a conversation very quickly after because it didn't feel good. The point is, sometimes you do stuff and you think you're doing it the right way, but at the end of the day, it was just wrong. What you did was not right. And you got to own up to that, because we're learning. So don't think, oh, you're going to go be this perfect person right away. Sometimes people might have interacted with me 5, 10 years ago and said, Sam, you were really screwed up when you did that. Well, I probably was. And would the Sam today do what the Sam 10 years ago did? Probably not in certain circumstances. But at that point in time, I was learning how to use my influence. And just like a toddler who learns how to walk or talk or eat or do anything, when you're learning how to use your influence, you're gonna screw up. You're gonna do things that you regret. You're gonna make mistakes. And that's part of learning how to master your influence.
Right. Let's go. What did the ref see? Because they see it from multiple angles that you can't see. And so sometimes we try to solve the problem from our own eyeballs, and you just can't do it. And it's because we look at things the way that we're comfortable at looking at things, because we don't like to be uncomfortable, because we're just fucking human beings like that. And we don't like to feel any type of pain. So we look at the things that we're comfortable with. Right. But in that process of doing that, that holds us back from growing and progressing. And if we're not progressing, then what we're giving isn't getting better. So now it takes our lack of receiving away from us. Right. And Tony Robbins said this, and I'll end with this because I could talk all day.